Guess who's back? Gary's back, and so are we. Welcome to Playing the Field, the Bachelor podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Field, the sports anchor here at ABC in New York City. Joining me now, as always, your Bachelor favorites, Jen Matarese, our Bachelor insider from here in New York City, and out in Los Angeles, Gina Sirico, our Bachelor expert. And it is our pleasure to welcome in Mr. Gerry Turner, the Golden Bachelor himself. Gary, what's going on, man? How are you?
You know, that's a pretty spectacular introduction. I don't know if I can live up to that.
Well, listen, we had the trumpets ready to go, but they were not in the budget last second, so we're going to have to go without the trumpets, unfortunately.
Yeah, I get the budget holdbacks are terrible these days.
Hey, listen, you were such a big part of this episode, and thanks so much for being on our favorite podcast here. And I guess in talking to Jesse Palmer this week, he said that it was a surprise that you showed up at the Bachelor Mansion. Kind of take us through that process. What was your motivation for coming on the show? And was it really a surprise to Joan and Jesse? I'm guessing they had no clue that you were coming.
I spent a couple of hours there. I was talking to Joan for quite a while. I did some question and answer with Claire and with Bennett. I did a little question and answer with Jesse.
So when you showed up, did you have the intention at all of maybe seeing if Joan was open for another chance at love with you? Like, if she had thrown that out there, would you have gone for it, or were you there strictly as a friend?
No, strictly as a friend. I think Joan and I have gotten closer and closer to each other after my season ended. She's really great. She's been very supportive to me through everything that's happened. And in turn, now I'm trying to be supportive to her during her journey. But it's really nice to know that it is a friendship. It's probably a good, close friendship, but it doesn't rise to the possibility of a romantic relationship.
I love that you guys are all still friends. When I spoke with Joan during this process while she was, on the show, while she was taping, and she told me that she asked some of, Bachelor's finest, the Bachelor Nation's finest, including you, for advice. So tell me what that conversation was kind of like, before she went on, before she started filming, and what you told her about the experience of being in the lead position.
Yeah, that's exactly what has happened with her. I remember the conversation that was between her and I a week or 2 weeks before she went for her taping. And we went through a number of questions that she had, and I tried to provide answers as good as I could. And then I also had 3 or 4 things that I shared with her that I felt like I certainly could have done a better job with in my season. And I think it was very useful for her. And quite honestly, it kind of helped clarify some of my thoughts. So it was well worth it for both of us.
You kind of brought me right into my next question. You talk about some of the things you could have done differently. What were some of those things looking back at your season, and how do you reflect back on that journey as a whole in terms of how it led you to where you are now?
Well, the journey in its entirety has always been a very positive impact on me. It's made me learn a lot about myself, and it's brought many opportunities and a lot of fun. But I think one of the things that I would point to the most that I learned through the show, or that I would maybe change, is trying to slow down a little bit more, trying to evaluate what was going on in the moment with a little more patience, trying to maybe zone out some of the high impact, high energy glitter that was going on, and try to make calmer decisions.
Do you wish that maybe, it's hard because it's Monday morning quarterbacking
Sure.
after the fact, right? But do you wish that maybe you hadn't gotten engaged and that you had just dated after and said, let's take things slower, like you just said? Or do you feel like the experience was the experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. But I kind of lead or lend myself to the second option that you spoke of. The experience was what it was. Looking back and trying to change things, it's easy to have 20/20, but it doesn't work that way. When you're in the moment and you're swept away in the energy and you're doing the best you can, certainly with all of the inputs you have, I really can't say that I would change anything.
When you made that decision, when you and Teresa made that decision to go separate ways, it was really kind of a shock. First of all, it was a shock to me. I had just seen you like a couple of weeks prior at an event. So it was very shocking. But also, I think it was a shock to everyone. So talk to me about kind of how, in looking now, just how you're feeling, how the both of you are feeling, where that relationship stands. Are you still close? Do you still keep in touch? Give us the scoop.
Yeah, certainly it was shocking. It was shocking for both Teresa and I. But now that there's been some time pass, I know for myself, and I believe Teresa would say the same thing, that we made the right decision. The regret is that she and I didn't do a better job of communicating with each other once the engagement was in place. We're both pretty smart people. We've done a great job in our lives. We're both logical thinkers. I think the emotions got the best of us. And, in retrospect, I think that's probably the area where we could have done better. We could have explored a little bit deeper those points that we found to be obstacles to our relationship.
And one of those obstacles is moving. And when you're, later in life and you have your family and you're there in northern Indiana all set up, that's such a big part of trying to move forward with someone is who's going to move, who's not, and how much more challenging does that make it at this point in your life, and how much of that was kind of relayed to Joan, because she touched on that in this episode too, that it's going to be hard for someone to move when you have kids and grandkids. I mean, it's the elephant in the room, but this is a fact of life, isn't it?
It is, and I'm kind of glad you see it that way. It's a very mature and logical way of looking at it. First of all, let me say this. I have such a tremendous amount of respect for Teresa and her position on wanting to stay close to her family. That's a number one priority. I remember when Joan had to leave last year in my season, the line that I gave her was that sometimes the right thing to do is the hardest thing to do. And when you apply that to Teresa's situation and my situation, the hardest thing to do was to respect our families and where we are at geographically and realize that the compromise that we thought was possible, and by we, I mean Teresa and I, that compromise is a little bit more difficult than what we realized. And that's where we should have done a better job of talking to each other.
Do you still talk to each other now?
We do. Not as often as maybe we could or we should, but we're both very busy. I know she has a lot of activities. Her daughter is expecting. She has her grandsons in the Carolinas that she wants to spend time with. I, in turn, have gone to a lot of football games. I've done a couple of trips. So some of the parts of life have just gotten in the way for communication. But I talked to a number of the women from my season, 6 or 7 of them I'm in constant communication with, texting or the occasional conversation. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had Kathy and Susan on last week, and they told us that you were still, close friends. Your daughters were just with them they were with Kathy or Susan in Philly. I mean, I kind of love that you all do still have that close bond. So we know, obviously, Joan, Kathy, and Susan. Who else are you still in contact with that you're still, in that close, have those as close friends?
Well, in addition, I talk to Faith once in a while. I've started to pop in and out with Leslie once in a while. So that's been a very positive thing that, we've kind of come to terms on how the season ended for her, and she's good with it now, and we've had nice conversations. Two of the women that I didn't get to know very well during my season, Nancy and Christina, and I talk to them regularly, and they're both very enjoyable to talk to. The irony of all of this is that I've gotten to know so many of them so much more deeply since my season was over than it was before the season ended.
To borrow an old phrase that I'm sure you can appreciate, inquiring minds want to know. One of the episodes you watched was with Kris Jenner, and people want to know about the Kardashians. Are you and Kris close? Are you friends with the Kardashians? I mean, it's such a big deal across the country, that family, and now you kind of have a tie to them. Kind of take us through that situation and kind of where things stand in terms of if you still keep in contact with them.
Yeah, I can tell you that my youngest daughter, Angie, is much closer to Kris Jenner and the Kardashians than I am. At that night when I went to dinner, right in the door, Kris said, wanted to know if I was a fan, and I said, no, but my youngest daughter really is. And Kris grabbed my phone out of my hand, called my daughter, Angie, and set the phone up on the dinner table so that Angie shared in the dinner conversation. So Kris, and that night, it was a lot of fun. It was a great night. But I got to be honest, I feel like that's sort of playing above my status a little bit.
Come on, Gerry, don't sell yourself short now.
I think they're real stars. I'm just a recent phenomenon.
That is a family of billionaires. So
Yeah.
To be fair, yes. Thank you, Gina.
Yeah.
So, are you still single? And if so, there's been a lot of talk about a golden paradise. Is that something that you would ever consider?
Yes, I'm still single. I've kind of enjoyed staying below the radar for several months, collecting my thoughts and deciding how I want to proceed. And as far as the Bachelor in Paradise, quite honestly, the concept of the show really fits a younger demographic, and I don't know how it would be applied to, some of the seniors, such as myself or Joan or the people that were on my season. Mm-hmm. The caveat there, I think, though, is that some of the women from my season would absolutely love to be on Bachelor in Paradise. They'd love it if they could hook up and match up with some of the men from Joan's season. I think that would kind of be epic. The most I would want to do, I want to stay on the sidelines. Let me have the second chair as the bartender.
We'll see you sipping Mai Tais with Jesse.
Oh yeah, I'd love that. That'd be great. I don't think I want to be actively involved in it though.
I think personally, I'm going to put in the lobby right now for you as the bartender. I think that's okay with you. If you can make a good Mai Tai, a good, vodka tonic, I think you're golden, right? I think that would be fun.
Well, I've hung out a couple of times with Wells, and he's a super guy. So I think it would be an interesting dynamic to have him be the primary guy there, and I could be his trainee. And make drinks, and
I like it.
I could be in charge of the beer, whatever.
I was picturing more of the Tom Cruise cocktail style, Gerry. You flipping the bottles around, making the pina coladas for the ladies.
I will rise to that occasion. If I am called, I will serve.
I have no doubt about that. Listen, you said you're single. What are you looking for right now? Are you looking for love? What are you looking for in a partner? I mean, obviously, you've been living your best life since this show ran, and we've been so thrilled to have you here on the show. What are you looking for right now? What do you want? What does Gerry want?
There's two thoughts that come to mind. First off, I want something to find me. I don't want to be out there searching. Because I've seen and I've heard that love comes to you in an unexpected way. As soon as you're not looking, that's when it hits. And then the second thought, and I saw this online, when you're older, love hits different. And that is something that I've really spent a lot of time thinking about. Maybe there's not as much romance and schmarmy feeling as there is the acknowledgement of someone that you can't live without and that is a good partner in life. You're not thinking about kids anymore and all of that, but I think the priorities change. And so I keep those two things to the forefront, that, love hits different when you're older.
Well, listen, we know that to be true, and we know this to be true as well. We are certainly pulling for you and rooting for you, and we can't thank you enough for coming on our podcast. And we know nothing but the best is still ahead for you, my friend. And when you make us a promise, when you either learn how to become a cocktail-style bartender or when you find the love of your life, we want to have you back on the podcast to talk about it. How about that?
I think that's two milestones that we would indeed want to celebrate together. So, yeah, that'd be great.
We will cheers to that, my friend.
Too long, Gerry. It's been far too long. I saw you a million times and then I don't see you. I don't know. I feel like you've missed me.
I feel you. We're there.
Been there through the whole thing, man.
Well, hey, man, try to stay warm there in northern Indiana, and we can't thank you enough for coming on Playing the Field.
It's been my pleasure. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys. Thank you again.
Thank you, Gerry. We'll talk to you again soon. Well, Gerry was great. I think we can all agree on that. The thing I like about him, he's exactly the same guy that you saw on the show. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And he answered every question we had honestly, truthfully, and very well spoken. And I really enjoyed the conversation.
He's gracious and humble and just sweet as could be. And I'm glad to hear that they're all still friends.
And he really didn't say that he missed Gina as much as Gina was trying to get him to say that. It really
You weren't on before.
We were not privy to the pre-conversation. I see. But listen, his appearance, if you will, was a big part of this episode. And it was one of those things where I thought his conversation with Joan and I'm glad you asked him about this, Jen, because when he said, is it possible that the guy that you want is not here?
Yeah, like me?
Yeah, right. And that's kind of what I was thinking. So I'm glad you asked him about that to clear the air.
I just wanted to make sure, because of course everyone's like, oh, he's there as a friend. And I'm like, but what if? He showed up looking very nice. He came out of a limo. I mean...
Gina, how much, and you're as dialed in as anyone, how much of that is him wanting to come back on the show, or how much of that is the producers wanting him to come back, and how much is it maybe a combination of the two?
I think it was a combination of the two. I mean, first of all, we all know everyone fell in love with Gerry as the Golden Bachelor. This part of the franchise has been a huge success. And so, of course, having him be a part of Joan's season, had to come, it had to happen at some point. That it happened in this episode when she really needed a friend, I think was special. I think she really needed to hear the things that he had to say. And I like that she was able to get that clarity.
I thought the timing was perfect, and we'll get to the rose ceremony here in just a little bit. I wanted to touch on Gerry's conversation with her since we just came out of Gerry's interview. But going back to the beginning of this episode, so funny. Nobody can get any sleep. Pascal is telling the guys how high maintenance he is with Jesse there, and it was just kind of a perfect scene setter. And that's kind of like, we've joked about this, it's kind of how I envisioned life in the mansion in the Golden Bachelorette. Just a bunch of old guys trying to take a nap in the middle of the afternoon. And I thought the way they set the table for this episode, Jen, was pretty fun.
Oh, boy. Oh, my God. I wished I could just sleep. Guys are snoring. They're getting up to go pee.
I'm going to fix the snoring. It's a chaos.
Oh, Charles, we get to finally get these guys
right
to help them sleep.
Oh, yeah, there are quite a few. They have troubles.
Here. What are you thinking?
Melatonin to begin with.
Earplugs.
Yeah, this is also good.
So ensure some quiet time.
Right.
That's like a little onesie.
We need to sleep well for Joan. Help yourself.
You got some eye gear, right? Earplugs.
Yeah, I'll split those.
Because we know there's been some snoring going on.
You brought all this for us?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hope you sleep better tonight.
It was really fun. And I also loved that they had Charles L. and Gerry go and
To the drugstore.
Yes, they bought melatonin and earplugs and those cute little pajamas and things.
And the eye masks.
So cute. So I think it was nice that, like, and the guys loved it. They were like, oh, thank you. They were so, like, glad to have those things.
And then
I love, by the way, that Pascal, first of all, called himself high maintenance.
Which
and then
he is.
Second, thought that the mansion had a housekeeper and a cook. And I'm like,
it is a
"Sir,
Right,
mansion.
it is
not
a
that
mansion.
kind of mansion. It's not that kind of mansion.
I think they should have kept Jack there as the cook all season. That would have been fun, just to leave him in the kitchen, just cooking away.
You can't compete for Joan anymore, but you can cook
You
for
can
us.
stay here and
Oh,
be our
man,
house
that's-
chef. You know what? I think he would have jumped at it if I'm being
I
honest.
think so,
Probably
too.
would have. All that time in the pool doing
Exactly.
animals, I think it would have been great.
He absolutely would
Extra
have.
pool time.
Let me say this. We've been doing this podcast now this is our third season. We had Joey and we had Jen and now we have Joan, correct?
Yes.
The date that Pascal and Joan went on might have been my favorite date of the seasons that we've done thus far on Playing the Field. I thought it was so cool. She picked him up in a Porsche, takes him to the private jet. They fly to Vegas. They're trying on all the costumes. Frickin' Wayne Newton is there
I couldn't
singing
believe
Dunk
he
a
showed
Shane.
up. Oh, I loved it.
I mean, the fact that he can even still move his mouth with so much, all the work he's had done is still amazing at this point.
82.
82, but still going strong. We love Wayne Newton. And I just thought the whole date was so cute. And I thought it played to Pascal perfectly when he's like, oh, you're speaking my language, like with the private jet and the Porsche and the whole thing. And I thought it was one of the best we've seen since we've been doing this, Jen.
It was the best male version of the Cinderella experience.
Yes, exactly.
From
Well
the regular
played.
Bachelor
Yes.
show and it was perfectly suited for him, and he had a great time. He was so thankful to Joan too. He's like, "Thank you for picking me. Thank you, and you know, it was so funny, like when they were dressed up as Sonny and Cher. And I loved seeing that silly side of him.
Yes.
You know, because it wasn't just about the luxury. It was about he was appreciating his time with her. So I liked that.
Yeah, and Gina, we talked about this in the first episode. I said that he was kind of one to keep an eye on just because of his kind of debonair ways. And I thought, too, we learned a lot about him on a personal level at dinner and the struggles he had to overcome. And it really, humanized him, for lack of a better word. And I think Joan really appreciated that.
It puts the high maintenance part of Pascal into a different perspective. The way he grew up and the things that he went through as a child and, him coming here into this country alone, like, it was a struggle that I think maybe none of us realized, he had. And I like the fact that we got to hear that and see this side of him, because I think that if he gets further along in his relationship with Joan, I really do feel like that vulnerability and the authenticity that we saw is going to be a big part as to why she would move forward with him.
Authenticity is a perfect word for it. Obviously, he got the rose. She, I think, really likes him. Where this goes from here, we shall see.
French kissing.
They did some French kissing, although I think they just call it kissing in France, if I'm not mistaken. So you have Charles, who then has a little, pouring his heart out, which he's done throughout the last 3 episodes. And I think if we just want to kind of peek ahead as well as talk about where we are in this episode, I think Charles is talking a little too much about his wife, especially with Joan. And especially the part when he's like, I gifted you a picture of me and her. And I was just like...
Did he give it to her? Or did he show it off?
I
It's
thought
so
it was
good.
like a gift. It's like going on a date with someone and then saying, here's me and my ex. Look at how happy we were back in the day. And I know the circumstances are different.
Yeah.
And I realize that it's been 6 years and he's still trying to cope with all of this and kind of process everything. And I thought it was very cool of Guy, who had 2 awesome moments in this episode, one of whom was when he sat there with Charles and explained to him why his wife was bleeding
because
after
it
the
was
fall.
something that
Yes.
bothered him all these years.
He never got an answer. So I thought that was very cool, that guy
To
did.
give him closure like that, where he can tell him it's okay to move on, to tell him those words, that he can move forward from this and not dwell on the circumstances of it so much. It was a brain aneurysm that she passed from. There's often not anything you can do in those situations. So that was the first time I cried in the show.
Yeah, and there was a lot of emotional moments. Yeah, Gina is tearing up.
Right now.
And Gina, listen, I love putting you on the spot, and we have you on here so I can ask you the tough questions. We love Charles. We love Charles, right? We can all agree that. But if you're Joan and you're constantly talking to this guy and all he's talking about is his ex-wife, and you're on this show to find love, how do you balance looking for love and then feeling bad for him at the same time? I mean, this is a tough line to walk for her.
Here's the thing. I mean, I think that she understands what he's going through because it's about the same amount of time since she lost her husband.
Yes.
And, that he lost his wife. So there's that. The circumstances are obviously different of their losses, but I think that she understands what he's going through because she's going through the same thing. She's going through those same questions of, can I ever move on? Is it time to be happy again? We saw that throughout this whole episode. So to see Charles, in this way, I don't think, do I think that they're a match? Do I think that they'll be, end game? Probably not. But I do feel like, here we go again, they can be friends. They can be friends and understand and bond and help each other through what they're going through and how they're feeling, because they're probably feeling the same things. And also remember, in the last episode during the prom date, Charles was telling her that his wife was his first and only love. So for me, I look at Charles a little bit differently in that he understands. It's like, this is his first and only love. He married his first love. He lost his first love, and he hasn't dated since. So, like, if you look at it in that lens, it's a little bit different, and I think that he's learning a little bit, he's kind of like learning on the job here as well of like how to be able to get closure from that and move on. I think, to me, I don't know. I feel like that's just something important to keep in mind when it comes to Charles. I adore the guy. Do I think he's, Joan's perfect match? Probably not. But in just watching him on that set.
I do think, though, that they're building more of a friendship than a romance. And I don't see those romantic sparks between them. And I do worry, though, because he is coming off his first love, that he might not recognize the fact that Joan's feeling friend feelings for him and not romantic feelings just yet.
Right.
And I'm worried that he's going to feel very crushed. But, I mean, Joan's a great person, and I'm sure she's going to soften the blow somehow if that day comes. I don't see him being the final one.
Right. And
he did survive this episode.
And that's the point I was just about to make. So she gave him another rose.
Maybe she still wants to see.
And maybe she does still want to see. And I'm looking at it, and Gina, you are 100% right, per usual, on everything that you just said. I'm looking at it through the lens of, this is a dating show.
Yeah.
She's trying to find the one, and all this guy wants to do is talk about his ex. As sad as it is, and as gut-wrenching as it is,
But I also think you have to not call her
not the ex, right? I'm sorry, his widow.
It's his late wife.
Yes,
so
late
understand that part.
Very much so. And that was probably a poor choice of words on my part. But you get the point. And I think Joan, to Jen's point, is in a tough spot because she doesn't want to hurt him. So she's given him a rose, but is that now just delaying the inevitable that we all think is coming?
I always wonder about that on this show. How many are they delaying the inevitable for? And you can't speed up the process too much because then you don't have enough weeks on the show.
Right.
You need a show, yeah.
But also, maybe there is someone who was a slow burn in the beginning that catches up later. We've seen that happen many times. So, I don't think that they're going to get there because I just don't think he's ready yet. I don't think he's there. And I think Joan knows that, but maybe she doesn't want to cut his journey short yet because she thinks he still has things to learn and gain from it. But I don't think they haven't, that we've seen, they haven't kissed yet.
No. And listen, without a doubt, you're both right. He is one of our favorite characters this season, and it's so heartbreaking what he's still processing with his late wife. And I hope that there is a happy ending somehow for both parties here.
Golden Paradise.
Golden Paradise, yes.
Put him on the beach.
I would love to see it. I would love to see it. So I also love to see the kickball game, which was the group date. And I keep looking for Gina in the stands as an extra because we know she's very much, she was third wheeling at Disneyland. So I thought she was going to be there wearing one of either the red jersey or blue jersey, doing the cheers in the stands.
Come on down, guys!
Oh, Cap goes running out.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, everybody! As much as I like, getting to know your more serious sides, I think it's time to have some fun. I have two sports legends here to help me. Andre Reed and Eric Dickerson.
You're going to play a game that you haven't played probably since you were a kid. Kickball.
All right.
I'm pumped. We're going to take this win. We're going to go out on the field. I'm ready. Let's go, team.
Let's go.
There he is.
Gerry makes the play.
You better go.
Where's the
Got him.
throw?
Ow! I hardly understand the rules. The team members say, Charles, just play.
These guys are putting so much effort into it.
Head first by Greg.
Something got triggered in me. There's a lot of life left in this old guy.
Were you there for the kickball match?
I was not there for the kickball. I was
Oh.
the only time I was around during filming was on the Disneyland.
Okay,
So
just so we're clear going forward. I was really
You
hoping.
don't have to look for me anywhere
I was
else.
looking for
I
you.
will be there.
I was pausing it. I'm rewinding. I was looking for you in the stands. I swore you were there.
I would tell you if I was there.
I thought it might have been a surprise.
I love that they thought that they were getting a football date. And
Yeah,
then they
right.
got kickball.
Yeah, it's Andre
Which, I mean,
Reed and Eric
Fair,
Dickerson.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Listen, it was very fun, and it was a game, and I loved going back to Charles that he didn't know how to play. They were like, just go up there and play, and he's like, well, how do you play?
He did great.
He did great. He did great.
I love it. He's like, did you see me kick the ball?
Right.
That's what I say after I kick the ball, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you see the ball
I could
Yeah.
totally see that somehow, some way. But yeah, then they're all sore afterwards. The guys are getting massages the next day after a game of kickball. I thought the whole date was very fun, and I think Joan had a good time. And at that point, we who got the was
Gil got the group
Gil.
date
That was
rose.
right.
Yep.
It was Gil who got the group date
Mhm.
rose. So that was kind of a surprise.
Yeah, they furthered their relationship. They connected over the fact that it was her mother was adopted, and he has an adopted daughter.
Right.
And just talking about that and seeing his love for his family, I think touched her. So, yeah.
And I think that was also the moment where Joan got a little nervous and
Her mother.
her emotions started getting the best of her because she got a call about her mom being
Yes.
ill, and her mom is 92 and she's the caregiver. So of course she's going to start to, all those emotions are going to bubble up, and that's going to obviously lead into some of the things that happen later in the episode.
Which brings us to the one-on-one with
Jonathan.
Jonathan. And you're both going to laugh, but the first thing I thought?
What?
Damn, girl, you look good on that horse.
Oh, no.
Going back to Grant and Jen on their horse date. It was the first
say
thing I
something?
thought of, and I just started dying laughing.
Didn't he say that too, though? Didn't
He didn't say it in those words.
Not quite, but it
Damn,
was like,
girl, you look good on that horse.
look lovely on that horse. Or something like that.
He may have. I don't. He did compliment. I love that he compliments her the week.
Yes.
He does. He's very
One thing
sweet.
about Jonathan, I have to say, which was interesting to me, and Jen, check me on this because I'm not sure. I can't think of anybody else who has said to the cameras, I don't know that I didn't want to go on this one-on-one date. I
Never.
didn't want the time.
Never.
Right? I don't think I've ever heard that before. And I felt like that was kind of like vulnerability at its peak. This was a guy who's like, I'm scared of he said he was afraid of he's going to just be out there and exposed, and he's going to have to be him, and she could not like him. And
And I love
was a
that
really
Greg
scary
said she's going to really like you,
Yeah,
And
and they were cheering him when he got the
Yes.
one-on-one. I just love that aspect of this season. And listen, I can't blame the guy. He was saying, listen, I can blend in a group date, and I don't have to worry about going home on a group date. But a one-on-one, as you know, you don't get the rose, that's it.
But
So he
would
felt the
stand
pressure.
out? he has to stand out enough to get a rose in the end, though. So I was
certainly
thinking that.
does.
I was like, you might not want this one-on-one, but there's no guarantees if you're on a group date,
Right.
either.
And
so-
you get a free pass through the rose ceremony if you do get the rose.
Yep.
So we saw that to be the case with him. And do you like their chemistry, Gina? I thought they had some good conversation. And I like the part that he picked up on the fact when she was watching the hawk go by, that he was like, are you okay? Like he could tell that something was wrong with her, even in that moment where she was kind of putting on a happy face. So, Gina, I thought that was a good sign, too, in terms of where their relationship is at this point.
Yeah, he was very perceptive, and he, I think her energy definitely shifted because that's a sign, and
Right.
That's something that she had said from the beginning was something that she, looked for as a sign from her late husband, and so there was another time where I cried. So,
Yeah.
I mean, like
I
Jen,
cried 4
think
times.
Yeah, I think I cried more than that. I don't know.
Really? You beat me. I feel like I cry more than
That is quite surprising, if I'm being honest.
I know. My cold, dead heart.
Yeah, seriously.
But
Poor
this show,
Gina.
forget it. I've been bawling my eyes out.
Yeah,
this whole episode.
Yeah, it's been so good in this episode especially. And my man Kim, the
goodness. Here we
naval
go.
officer, doing the Mansion Man song. It was such a fun idea because you could picture him being the captain of his ship, right?
We are the Mansion Men, the mighty Mansion Men.
Mansion Men. You could see him being the captain of his ship, and this is what makes a good captain. It's about the camaraderie, right? So he's like, we have the day here at the house to ourselves. What can we do as a group to make this a better day? So he writes this song thinking it's all going to be like an 8-man chorus. So his intentions were spectacular. But at the same token, I understood why some of the guys didn't want to sing and felt like this was his mission, not theirs.
I felt like they said it was his mission and not theirs to get out of it.
Of singing, yes. But right.
But it was a cute song, but I think they felt like it was silly and wouldn't put them in the best light in front of Joan, maybe. And I think Guy played it right, where when you're supportive of someone, it's just going to reflect back to Joan in a positive way.
Absolutely. And that was the second moment in addition to his
love
time
him
with
now.
Charles. Yes. Guy, because that was, Gina, wasn't that kind of, we don't want to call it a cliffhanger, but they kind of left it in the moment, well, how is this going to play out with this song? Is it going to be Kim singing by himself? And then when the moment came, I had a big smile on my face when I saw Guy standing there next to him in a duet. I thought that was one of the best moments of the episode.
We love a supportive king, right? And that seems to be like what some of these guys are. And Guy was definitely that. I think that he saw that, some of the guys were a little wary of the situation, which understandable. I mean, I get it, but I like that he did it. I like that because at that point of the night, I also do feel like they thought it might get a smile out of Joan.
And it did. She loved it.
That had just happened. So, yeah.
She loved it. And that, of course, took place at the cocktail party. And we have to talk about Chock because, Joan comes in and I'll be honest, I got teary-eyed when she was giving her speech with the guys about being vulnerable and you guys need to see this side of me and here's all the things that I'm dealing with. And I try to be strong and it's so hard and I'm tired.
Yeah.
And I think, you're a mom of 12 kids. Seems like that on your Instagram.
3.
Every time I open it up, it seems like there's more kids
I know.
on your Instagram story. I don't know if they're like the neighbors'
I'm
kids.
borrowing 'em
Yeah,
now.
you're borrowing kids for the social media. So, but you listen, you have to be strong. You're a mother of the household and you have to wear that weight, right? Every day. And now she has 14 boyfriends, as she called them, and, a mom who's sick, grandkids, her own kids. So picture your life and then times it by 10.
And minus your partner in life to help you manage all of those things.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? And doing that on your own, it's got to be, really tough. So hats off to all the moms doing it on their own out there because I ask for a lot of help.
And listen, there is nothing wrong with that. But this brings me back to my point about Chock, Gina. So she gives this speech and Chock says, can I pull you away for a few minutes to talk to you? And he says, I'm not trying to be, I forget the word pushy, I think is what he said, but do you want to find love? Do you want to be with someone? And this goes back to the point about this being a dating show. I can understand why he asked her that question in that moment, but were you cool, Gina, with the timing of that question in that moment?
Well, here's the thing. I do feel like it was like a intention and execution moment, intention versus execution thing there with Chock. I do feel like if he, because it happened right after she said, am I going to be able to find love? Do I want to find love? I don't know. And that whole moment, which, by the way, I feel like was one of the most real moments on this reality show ever.
The entire franchise.
Real moments.
No question.
Yeah, I felt like I get where he was coming from because she had just said, am I ready? I don't know. So I get that. It felt a little, I think the execution of the question just felt a little off-putting.
Yeah, I would agree.
Which I was a little surprised about. But I get where he was coming from with asking.
And before
the wording wasn't right.
Yes, but now you kind of get a glimpse, and we'll get to the rose ceremony. He did get a rose, but the trailer for next week. And now you can see Chock almost pulling like a Devin, kind of getting into his own head, not to that level, but overthinking
What would
it.
evil Chock look like?
What would evil? We'll find out. It won't be like a straight Blackbeard. It'll be like the salt and pepper look. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know that he really leaves next week. The trailer, you see that he's like, I'm leaving, guys. They saw Joan distraught. And then you see the car door, but we didn't know that we don't know that it's him for sure because you don't fully see that it's him. You just see kind of like
he was doing either, right? We also don't know that.
But you see parts of that kind of coming to the surface now, where Chock is maybe finding himself like Devin, in that he's very much into this person and is now struggling with the insecurities that come with that.
Yeah, he didn't like seeing her go on the date with Pascal.
He did not like that.
No one liked that. But I thought, going back to that question he asked her, she ended up liking it, though, because she said that her late husband, John, was a fixer, and she sees Chock as a fixer. So while we might have felt a certain way about it, I wonder if there was conversation we didn't hear where he said stuff to her and it came across differently to her.
Yeah,
maybe,
that's a good
perhaps?
point. We don't see all this. That could have been a half hour long conversation.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that question might have come at the end.
Saw that portion.
Right.
It may have been, it may have been something that they were talking about, before that, and they only used that part. Sorry, I just got so
got very excited.
Conversation that I
whacked up.
I know, I'm so emotional about it.
Well, because you are a Chock fan, right?
And listen, I think the thing, we love Chock, and the thing that we learned about Chock is in it to win it. Like, Chock really likes Joan.
I would be shocked if he actually left.
I would be shocked too. I heard the only reason he's leaving is because he's only going to agree to a date if Gina can come along.
I think the only reason
Gina
he is
coming on the one-on-one.
Gina, can you fix this? Can you go and fix this?
We need the tripod.
I'll see what I can do. No, Ryan, no.
Yes, we are. You're a three-man team. That's what you guys are. But listen, we love Chock. Chock is in it to win it, and I don't think he leaves either. I think that there's no way they would give that away in a trailer for next week, would they?
Oh, that's
you guys are more well-versed in this than I am. I don't think, Gina, come on. There's no way the producers would give that away in the trailer.
Here's the thing. No, I don't think so. But also, we've been fooled before by trailers, and thinking things that were going to happen didn't happen. So I'm not going to think about it until next week.
All right, great.
I'm going to try and zen out and not think about all of that.
We didn't know you were that stressed about this.
I'm very stressed
I can tell. You're wound up about it. Rose ceremony. Go ahead. What did you think?
Oh, so I was getting nervous for our boy Mark.
Yeah, well, and you know what? The
Rose.
hesitation, and she was just like, these guys are all so great, I don't want to send any of them home. Does that mean Mark is not... I love Mark in the shark costume, by the way.
It's so funny.
When he gave her the shark onesie, when he was biting on her and stuff, I thought that was super fun. Gina, do we think that Mark is maybe...
On the fringe?
Yeah, on the fringe. Thank you, Jen.
It's possible. I mean, here's the thing. We're only on week 3. So I
Feels
think
like forever.
It does feel like forever.
It does feel like forever. We are only on week 3. We have a lot of time left. There are plenty of one-on-one dates that we still have to see, and maybe he'll get one. I have a feeling he will, because I do feel like from the beginning she was she was into him. She was into
I would
him
agree.
from the minute he walked out of the limo, and I think she was happy to see him there. It's possible that she feels like there may be a connection there, and she wants to see what some of these other guys really are about because she knows there's like something there with Mark. I don't know. I can't get into her thinking, although there is a possibility in the next couple of weeks that we will be talking to Joan. We'll keep you posted.
Ooh.
Asking her all these questions.
Gina with the 411, we like that. Listen, and before we talk about who went home, I also want to say that I'm so glad that Gerry got a rose. That prayer that he wrote for her mom
Beautiful.
and framed it, it was another one of the what felt like numerous touching moments in this episode. And I think Joan was, overwhelmed by the moment, and that really cemented the fact that she really likes Gerry.
He has such a kind heart.
He does.
He's thoughtful. He thinks about her and ways to help her through things. So I was happy he got a rose too.
I was happy he got a rose. Greg went home. CK went home. And who was the other one that went home? Oh, that's right. The naval captain.
Yeah, Captain Kim.
But you know what, Gina? I liked when Kim left. He said, "Can we still be friends?" I thought that was awesome.
That was sweet.
I love that. And Joan was like, we already are. Like, there's no doubt about it that, just like with Gerry's season, that they'll all have connections and be friends. And I like
She's like, we're already just friends.
We're already just friends, Kim.
We're already just friends.
I mean, I love the song, but you got friend zoned a long time ago, buddy. I hate to say it to you.
Aw.
Appreciate the effort.
And Kathy, if she's listening to the podcast, Greg is available.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Kathy did like Greg.
Yeah, our friend Kathy from Gerry.
We got to get Susan set up with Jack, and we'll be good to go.
If we can make that happen, I'd be pumped.
And we know who the fifth wheel is going to be.
Me?
Our girl, Gina. She'll be right there for the whole thing, getting the scoop. We'll have a post-date interview.
Not the least bit cute or funny, right?
After they hang out at Bennigan's. It's going to be great.
We're going to see a lot of these guys next week in the form of a strip show.
Well, yeah. How
Maybe
about the fact they're bringing that? Yeah, maybe a little bit too much. And she's like, "Are you sure you've never done this before?" I forget who she said that to. But it's going to be a fun episode next week. So we're down to 11.
I was not on that date, just so you know.
Well, that's the one you did want to be on.
No, that's not the one I wanted to be.
Come on, Gina.
Come on, Gina. Give us the tea. We're down to the final 11. Who's the leader in the clubhouse here? I'm sticking with my man. I haven't called him this whole episode. My man, Pappy LePew. Pascal.
Yeah.
I love him. I think he's great.
I think him. I think Chock. I like Gerry after that. Guy really. He looks like he's gonna make some ground up.
And so does Mark in the trailer for next week. Looks like Let's see how this all unfolds.
Yeah. Dan is still in the mix.
Dan's still in the mix.
What's up with Keith? We didn't get to see very much of him.
Something happened there, Gina. What's your take on that? He got the first impression rose, and now he's kind of blended into the background with everybody else.
Well, I think that happens a lot. You get the first impression rose because of whatever happened on that night. And then, you just see, like, you already know, okay, there's a connection there. And then you just kind of see. But as in history of Bachelor franchises, of all the Bachelor franchises, it's very rare that the person who gets the first impression rose ends up being the one at the end.
But they also
saw that last year with Sam M. We saw that with, I'm trying to remember who Joey's first impression rose was, but I don't think it was Kelsey. So I feel like it happens a lot.
I do think they get one-on-one dates sooner, though.
There's time. Again, we're only in episode 3, so
that's a good point that Jen just brought up, Gina. That typically they do get one-on-one dates sooner when they get the first impression rose, unless Joan already knows how she feels about Keith, and now she's trying to feel out some of the other guys to see if they can get to that level too, which is also possible.
Yeah, no, I agree. You saw that with Jen Tran last season. Sam M didn't get a one-on-one date for a while.
The first impression rose went to Leah in Joey's season.
Remember the letter? Because she threw the letter away.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and then she became our villain, and we were like,
yeah, you saw that. The tables really turned.
Yeah.
That seems like so long ago.
I know. Time goes so quickly in the Bachelor world.
We're already on episode 3. Episode 4 is still to come, and it looks like a doozy. And if you want to follow along on our Playing the Field journey, go ahead, Jen.
Like and follow us on our podcast, and you can listen wherever you get your podcasts.
By the way, before we say goodbye, did anybody pick up on the name of the group date that was on the date card when Joan invited the guys to come play kickball?
Did it say playing the field?
She said, come play the field, boys. And I was like, look at Joan. She's a fan of the program.
She
We
has
love
been
it.
here.
Before she even came on.
Before she even came on. If that wasn't foreshadowing, I don't know what was. But listen, we want to thank...
You know what? Maybe it's the producers knowing. It's a little nod to us.
I love it. It was a nice little wink, and we very much appreciated it. And we very much appreciated Gerry coming on, giving us all the dirt about his life. And we wish him nothing but the best. And we thank you, as always, for watching and listening. For Gina, I'm Jen. I'm Ryan. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Playing the Field.